Hey Soc classes, welcome to your first video for Chapter 3. Chapter 3 is covering social structure and group behavior, and this video is going to discuss social structure, roles, and groups. And so remember, at any point in time, if things are moving too quickly, you are obviously more than welcome to pause and rewind as needed. So let's take a look at your notes for Part 1 of Chapter 3. All right, so let's start by defining what social structure even is. Okay, social structure is the way in which a society is organized into predictable relationships. And that's usually done by knowledge of our status in society. Your status is just an individual's position within a large group or society. And so we're organized into these predictable relationships known as social structure, and that's done so by using one's status. There are two different types of statuses. Your status may be ascribed, which means it's assigned to a person by society, or it may be achieved, which means that you've earned the status through your traits or your qualities, your talents, or your efforts. Okay, within that social structure, we are going to play roles. Okay, roles are just the expected behavior pattern within a status, and so every social status has expected behavior that we call roles. Okay, and so each and every day, right, we are playing many roles. Whether it be your role as student, your role as son or daughter, right, your role as employee at your part-time job, your role as brother or sister, your role as teammate. We play lots of roles on a daily basis. Okay, because we play lots of roles, sometimes these things happen. Role strain is going to occur when conflicting demands are built into a single role. So think about your role as student. Aren't there often times where you have, like conflicting demands just as a result of being a student? Like, I assign a sociology test, of course, the same night that your English research paper is due. And how will you get everything done? That's an example of role strain. Role conflict happens when we have conflicting demands between multiple statuses that you hold. And so think role strain might be studying for sociology and doing your English paper. Role conflict might be trying to get your English paper done as you work, after school to close at your part-time job every night the week the paper's due. That's a good example of role conflict. Okay, keep in mind that roles are reciprocal, which just means that roles are part of our interaction with other people's roles. And so think the reciprocal role of when you play the role of student is my role as teacher, right? Doctor, patient, manager, employee, right? Worker, customer. We have these sorts of reciprocal roles, right? That help us interact with other people. Okay. Social institutions are going to be the established patterns of beliefs and behaviors. And so the thing to keep in mind is that we exercise our roles within an institution. And so just think of the institution as the place that has the established patterns, so we, know our role within the institution and as a result know how to act. And so some good examples of social institutions, right? Families, right? Everybody has a role to play and everybody knows what's expected of them. School, right? That's a great example, right? My role as teacher, I know what's expected of me. You know what's expected of you as a student. Governments are another great example of a social institution. Okay, so the institution's just the place where we exercise our roles. Okay, we're not just exercising our roles by ourselves, though, right? What happens within these social institutions is that we have groups. Okay, a group is just at least two people who have one or more goals in common and share common ways of thinking and behaving. All right, and so groups kind of function within these social institutions. Again, it's highly unlikely that you're exercising a role all by yourself. Before we talk more about groups, let's define what is not included in the definition of a group. Okay, and those are what's known as social categories and social aggregates. Okay, a social category are just people who share a social characteristic, right? They're like students is a social category, right? That's not a group in which you belong, and that you don't necessarily know every single high school student on the entire planet. A social aggregate is going to be people that just happen to be in the same place at the same time. So like everybody shopping at Target is an example of a social aggregate. You're not a group, you're not interacting with each other, you just all happen to be in the same place at the same time. Okay, now that we know what a group isn't, let's talk about what a group is. The three characteristics of groups, right? Groups have structured interaction, right? Whether it be a group of your friends, right? Hey, when are we hanging out next? Or it be your sociology class. We have structured interaction. Common goals and norms, right? That we all have, rules for behavior and goals that we have, that we share with one another. And a common identity. And so, although many of you are watching this video and taking notes, not all of you are a part of the same group, and that I teach multiple sociology classes, right? Each one with its own identity. Additionally, keep in mind that relationships within groups can be one of two things. We can have instrumental relationships, which focus on accomplishing a goal. And we can also have expressive relationships, which are relationships that are valued for the, relationship itself. And so within our sociology class, if you're put into a small group with people that you may or may not know, right, or I'm helping you with an assignment, those are examples of instrumental relationships. Whereas your best friend may be in class with you, and you value your interactions with them simply because, they're your friend and you care about them. That's an example of an expressive relationship. All right, so how do things work in a group? Okay, let's talk about decision making. Two different things can go down. First is that decisions in a group can be made by everybody participating as equals, which is often referred to as laissez-faire or hands-off, right? Letting the group decide. Very rarely just in my personal experience, do you find a lot of groups that work that way. Traditionally, though, one or two leaders usually emerge within a group, and decisions are made by that one person or those few people, right? Now, leadership could go down one of two ways. Like if there is a leader or a few key leaders, it can be authoritarian, which just means that the leaders give orders, or it could be democratic, which is more give and take interactions. Now, a lot of people tend to confuse democratic leadership with what laissez-faire decision making. But remember that democratic leadership means that the leader may listen and entertain ideas and suggestions of the group, but he or she is going to make the final call. Like compromises may be had, but there's still a person or a few select people making the decision. So just keep that in mind. All right, so let's talk about the different types of groups to which you could belong. All right, hopefully you belong to at least one primary group, right? A primary group's people who are emotionally close, know each other well, and seek one another's company. Like your family is a primary group. Your best friends are your primary group. Okay, but I bet you also belong to secondary groups, which are going to be people who share just a part of their lives together while focusing on a goal or task. So maybe you have a set of coworkers or a set of teammates, or again, your sociology class is a great example of a secondary group. All right, more groups. We can also talk about groups in terms of in-groups and out-groups. Okay, an in-group is just going to be an exclusive group that demands intense loyalty, like think of a clique. right? While the out-group is a group targeted by an in-group for opposition, antagonism, or competition. Okay, and so in-groups usually have some sort of way to distinguish themselves from the out-groups, whether it be how they dress or the language that they use, right? And so like cliques are a great example of in-groups and out-groups. Like to whichever clique you may happen to belong would be your in-group, and other cliques of people at school would be your out-group. All right, one more type of group here, a reference group. Okay, a reference group is going to be a group that's used for self-evaluation and the formation of norms and beliefs. All right, and so you look up to a reference group for ideas on how to behave and what to believe. Keep in mind this, though. Reference groups can be positive or negative, all right? And so, like, I may look at a gang and think that's not how I want to behave. Or, you know, if you're a senior, you may look to the previous graduating class and it could either be positive or negative. Like, wow, they graduated, they conducted themselves with dignity and respect. They're now off, working jobs and going to college. Like, they've really got it together. Or you may look, I guess, at the previous graduating class and maybe say, yikes, right? They're a hot mess. I definitely don't want to be like them come graduation time. And so just know that reference groups can be, positive influence or a negative influence. They can tell you how to act, or they could tell you how not to act. Okay, and so that concludes part 1 of chapter 3. Okay, so bring your notes with you to class, and of course, any questions that you may have over groups, institutions, and roles that we play in those institutions. As always, thanks for listening.